So I'm interviewing you for a podcast named 542 Humans. And can you start with presenting you, who you are?
Sure. My name is Ethan. I'm 22 years old and I'm going into my last year of college. I have experience as a software engineer and I'm an aspiring entrepreneur.
Okay, so 22. Okay, where did you say you're from? Sorry, I didn't.
I'm from California.
Okay. So first question is, how do you feel right now?
How do I feel right now? I would say I feel pretty good overall. This is my first podcast, so I definitely feel myself being in new territory, but it's also like very exciting because I've always wanted to expose myself to the world, and I think I've always been a very shy person, especially growing up. So I'm really glad that I have this opportunity to put myself out there and venture outside my comfort zone and challenge myself.
What are you the most worried about in general?
Am I most worried about?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. What am I most worried about? I think I'm just really worried that things will not turn out as good as they could be. I think I care a lot about making sure that I can do the best that I can. And I just want the world to be as good as it possibly can be because I've definitely experienced my fair share of suffering in the world. And I just want to make sure that I can do everything that I can to make sure things turn out as good as they can because yeah, that's a very vague answer, but I guess to sum it up, I just want things to be as good as they possibly can be, and I want to make sure that I play my part in making that happen.
So how do you deal with this? Like trying your best? Is that,
Yeah,
yeah?
trying my best, like really trying to be. I think something I really try to do is I really try to be mindful of every decision I make, like every word I speak and every decision I make. I try to be mindful of like why am I doing this? What are the consequences of it? And I think just really always questioning my assumptions and making sure that like I'm learning. I think in the past I used to have an ego. I used to be a prideful person, and I really did not like to fail. I did not like to have humility. But I think as I became more mature, I realized how important humility was for growing and making myself into a better person, making sure I don't repeat the mistakes that were taught to me or that I've made.
And how long do you think you've been doing this?
Good question. How long do I think I've been doing this? I think maybe for like four-ish years now. I think I would say it's been 4 years since I've been starting to like try to be humble and not be so prideful. I used to be a very resentful person. I used to be very like angry because I felt like man, like I deserve so much better, or like I was just like really angry at how the world treated me, and I was very angry at how my life was. But I think once I learned how to forgive myself and other people, I realized, wow, the best thing to do is to really be humble and to learn from your mistakes and to just always try to do better. I think anger is a very powerful and a very valid emotion, but it can also be a very destructive emotion if uncontrolled. Kind of like fire. Like fire can give life and it can empower people, but it can also be very destructive if it's not used properly.
What would be an example of a good way to use anger for you?
Good question. I would say a good way to use anger for yourself is to use it to defend yourself. I think if you like stand up for what you believe in, like oftentimes anger can be a very empowering emotion for that, like for you to defend yourself or defend your ideas or defend like what you believe to be right. So it can be a very powerful and good emotion in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you the most proud of?
That's a good question. What am I the most proud of? I think if I had to choose one thing I'm the most proud of, I would say I'm the most proud of my mindset and my attitude. I think I've had a lot of challenges in my life, and I think I have like many reasons to just be very bitter and resentful, or like to have like a victim mentality where I just feel like I might as well just like give up and stop trying. But I feel like I have a very like strong mental fortitude and a very optimistic and positive person, even though I've been through a lot in life. So yeah, I'm really proud of my attitude because it's something I put in a lot of effort to create, and I think it's definitely like really challenging to have a positive attitude when you've been given so many different tragedies in your life.
Hmm. I what kind of tragedy did you do you want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
this a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk about it on a like a superficial layer. I guess like the first things that come to mind are like I was born out of wedlock, so I had like a very like unstable home background. Like I grew up in a very unstable environment, and I think it was hard for me to feel loved and feel like I belonged because my parents were not ready for me. So I think they projected a lot of their like shame and guilt and insecurities onto me. They made me feel like I was just like a burden to their lives, and they could have been so much better without me. And I also had cancer when I was 12 years old. I had stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I think like those were some of the tragic things, and just I would say the main thing is just like a lot of like trauma from like growing up in an unstable household though.
Hmm. Seems like you learned a lot from this. Like you have this mindset you grew since. I mean, do you think it's related? Like, would you have the same mindset? I mean, of course not. You won't. But do you see
Mm,
how much you learned from this?
definitely, definitely. I think this sounds kind of cheesy to say, but even though I've been through a lot in life, I feel like I'm really grateful for my experiences. Like I love my parents a lot, and I love my family. Like I love like my extended family a lot, and I don't know. Even though like they're definitely not perfect, and like I wasn't perfect, and life was really hard. I feel like I've gotten to the point where I wouldn't have my life any other way. Like I wouldn't want to be born any other person, and I wouldn't want like different parents. Like I think like for a long time I used to resist who I was. I used to want. I wish I was like another person. I wish I was like from another culture. Like, but I think like as a mature adult now, I just really feel like I really wouldn't have my life any other way because I find meaning in every challenge that I've been through in my life.
Another topic is what do you think about politics?
What do I think about politics?
Mm-hmm.
That's like an interesting question. I guess I would consider myself not super political. Like I would say I don't have any strong political ideas because the way I see it is politics is like so complex. I'm very careful about the opinions that I choose to have because things are so complex, and I can often see things from like many different sides, which is a blessing and a curse. I think it's like a blessing because you can be open minded and you can be a good listener to people, but I think it can also be a curse because you don't have like a gravity. You don't like if you were in charge, like you wouldn't really have a direction to push people in. So yeah, I would say I don't have many strong political opinions, but I'm very open minded and I feel like I can understand a variety of different political points.
Hmm. And do you vote?
Do I vote?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I
No.
don't vote.
Mm-hmm. Um, if you would have one wish, what it would be?
Good question. If I had one wish, what would it be? Um, hmm. I think if I had one wish, I would wish for people to be more mentally healthy and more cooperative. I think yeah, I think that's like my one wish in the world. Like that's something that I've really like that's a big value of mine is I just want people to be cooperative because I think humans can do really amazing things when we're cooperative, and I feel like a lot of my life I kind of have seen and I see people not really cooperating when they could be cooperating, or like just fighting each other and being destructive when they could be cooperative instead. So yeah, if I had one wish, I would definitely wish for the world to be a more cooperative place because I feel like it's pretty common to see like people think it's like a dog eat dog world and everyone's just out for themselves. And I think unfortunately that can be the case in many environments, but it doesn't have to be. And if I had one wish, I would definitely wish for people to be more cooperative and more compassionate towards one another, more bonded.
Hmm. What do you think makes people destructive?
Good question. What do I think makes people destructive? I think what makes people destructive is I think oftentimes it's kind of like a chain reaction effect where one person makes a mistake and then like there's like a decision point at that node where things could either get better, like people could like forgive each other and reconcile and things can become okay again, or things can become worse. And I think oftentimes people become destructive. It starts as like a small seed and then like something bad happens and then people don't make up and then like more problems are built on top of that seed where just more and more bad stuff happens and then people don't forgive each other and then eventually it just spirals out of control. So I think it's kind of like a nuclear fission reaction where it's like one atom like splits another atom and then it causes a whole chain reaction. And I think that's usually how it happens. It starts small and then over time when it's not dealt with it becomes worse and worse.
So how could we stop the chain reaction?
How can we stop things from starting? That's a good question. I think if people had it in their I think if people were aware of that oftentimes like big wars start from small things. Like if people were aware of like taking the quote unquote minutiae of life, the small details of life more seriously, I think that could help a lot. I think it's easy for people to brush things under the rug when it's small, and then it's exactly that action of them brushing it under the rug that makes it turn into something big in the future. So I think if people could really realize that the small things in life become the big things, and that lesson was just well known, and people were aware of that, I think that could help ease a lot of big damage from happening if like people took the small damage more seriously.
So how would you make people aware about it?
How would I make people aware about that? That's a tough question. I guess like I don't. I guess the best thing that I can think of is like being a good example myself, like making sure that I take the small details seriously, and then hopefully like if I do that in the presence of other people will learn from that. And I think just talking about it openly is another good solution, like we're doing right now.
Okay, yeah, it's a good idea. Like make the be the change that you want to see, right?
Exactly.
How do you imagine the future in like 20, 30 years? Yeah.
I see. The long-term future. This is a really hard question for me to think about. The first thing that I will say is I feel like the long-term future is I don't mean for this to be a cop-out answer. I will answer the question, but I will say that I think the long-term future is like so unpredictable because life changes so much and technology is advancing so fast. So it's definitely impossible to know exactly how things will turn out. But if I had to guess, I think that things could go any number of ways. I think, of course, it's always possible that humanity kills itself, like with like nuclear bombs or something. But I think it's also possible that maybe like we go to Mars and we become like a more cooperative species. Like we learn how to solve a lot of the problems we have today. For example, like birth rates declining, and like we learn how to solve like problems like cancer, and like we learn how to use AI to help our lives versus destroy our lives or like take over our lives. So I think it could really go any number of ways, and I think that's what makes life so fascinating. Is we have no idea how things are going to turn out. Like we could either all be dead, like we could live in a very corrupt society, or things could get so much better. I think it could go in any number of ways. Yeah. Sorry, I hope that's not like a cop-out answer. It's hard for me to say
it's fine
with certainty, like which. Yeah.
You can answer whatever you want. Just so you don't like you don't have an idea about what's most likely to happen.
I think I am pretty optimistic because I think humans do a pretty good job of solving their issues. I think as long as like we're able to avoid like mass destruction with like World War III, like which I really hope we don't make that happen. I think humans have been really good at overcoming a lot of things. I think we're very resilient and very intelligent creatures. So overall, I would say we're optimistic. If I had to like bet money, I would bet that we're moving more towards a healthy future where AI helps us. And of course, there are always going to be problems, but I think we will find ways to solve a lot of the problems because I think humans are just really, really intelligent creatures. And I think it only takes like a few really intelligent and really hardworking people and very influential people to make a big impact.
Do you believe in something? Do you have some belief?
Good question. I think I would definitely say I respect I think saying if I believe in God or not, that's like a tricky question to answer because like it all depends like how you define God and like what you mean by God. But I will say I definitely respect that there are laws of the universe that are out of my control, and I respect the fact that I don't know why I was born into this world. I don't know why I exist. I don't know like what put me here, and I respect that there's a lot of things that I simply don't understand. So I think I would say I have the utmost humility, and I do respect Mother Nature. I respect God, like whatever like made this universe that like I don't understand, like I respect that. So yeah, I think that's how I would answer that question. Like I definitely like respect that there's so much out of reach, and I'm definitely a very humble person because I just know there's so much I don't understand about the universe, and I'm not going to try to pretend like I do.
So you don't identify to any religious or way of yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess I'm like a really big fan of Buddhism. I'm a really big fan of like being very compassionate towards all beings and doing my best to contribute love to the world and ease suffering as much as possible. I'm also a big fan of Taoism. Like Taoism is like not forcing things and going with the flow and being effortless in how you live your life, like not forcing anything to happen and like realizing there's a way that the universe works, and rather than trying to go against the way that the universe works, like try flowing with the universe, like sail with the wind. So yeah, I guess like they're kind of like a mixture between like philosophy and religions. I'm not really sure if like I guess Buddhism's kind of a mainstream religion, but I'm not sure if Taoism is considered a philosophy or religion or both. But I would say those are the two ideologies that I resonate the most with.
Mm-hmm. Do you think humans are born good or bad?
That's a good question. Do I think humans are born good or bad? Um, I think I would answer that question by saying humans are born both good and bad. I don't think you can classify humans as either good or bad. I think humans have great capability for being really good, and humans also have great capability for being really evil. I do like to see the positive aspects in humanity though, so I would say I'm more I forget what the word is. More, I guess I'm more optimistic. I used to be a very cynical person where I thought people were naturally bad and like people were out to get each other. But I think like nowadays, the way that I see things is like I think people are generally naturally good, but I think when they do bad things, it's usually because of their own ignorance or because they've been hurt a lot themselves. So they've chosen to do bad things because they were unable to overcome the evil that happened to them. So they become corrupted by the bad in the world. But but yeah, I do think that humans are natural, like tend towards good.
Hmm. What do you think about the younger generation?
By younger generation, do you mean like children, or do you mean like people in their 20s, or?
Um, yeah, so just younger than you, so yeah, 20.
Sure. I guess like what do I think about them? I think that they have to be very careful because I think they're in a position where they're experiencing the hyper reality. And what hyper reality is basically how the digital world becomes more real for many people than the actual real world because more people spend time consuming content online and like on a screen. So that becomes a hyper reality because more of their perception becomes built off of that digital world. So I think I am worried about the younger generation spending too much time on screens and not enough time around real people. Um, yeah, like I think like you already see it where what people would be like all in a subway or like all in a place and like they'll all be on their phones and like not talking to each other. I think it would be really cool if like rather than that being the norm, what if like just talking to strangers at the coffee shop or like wherever you go is the norm. I think that would be a lot healthier. So I am really worried that they might get too consumed by the hyper reality and too consumed by the digital world. Um yeah.
Hmm. And what about the older generation?
The older generation, hmm. I think what I'm worried about the older generation is that they grew up in such a different world than people in the digital age are growing up in now. So I'm worried that there will be too big of a chasm between the older generation and the younger generation where they won't be able to communicate with each other. Like the way that like the culture between the older generation versus the younger generation becomes so different, like that we can't see eye to eye, and like it will become hard for us to like coexist and like find like have meaningful bonds with one another because we're so different.
Hmm. What is the most important thing in life to you? Or the most valuable thing?
Mm, the most valuable thing to life in me, I guess this is I guess that this is another very vague answer, but I'll elaborate on it. But I would definitely say the most valuable thing in life to me is love, and I think love is a very complex thing to define, and it's a very powerful thing. I would say love is one of the most powerful forces in the world. I think when I think of love, I think of people flourishing. I think of people cooperating. I think of people communicating what's on their mind. I think of people communicating or listening to one another. I think of people like wanting to give to one another. I think of people contributing value and being productive and being creative. I think of love as the force that brings out the best in people. And I think sure. Yeah, so I'm answering the question, what is the most valuable thing about life? And I would say the most valuable thing about life is definitely love. And what I define love as is the force in life that brings out the best in people, and the force in life that makes people want to give to other people, and the force in life that makes us feel bonded with one another and cooperate with one another. I think the more love that we have for one another and the more love that we have for ourselves, that's the most valuable thing in life. And I think as long as people receive the amount of love that they deserve and need, then they will be happy and they will have the health that they need to withstand the suffering of life.
Hmm. So how could we make more? Um,
Hmm. How could we add more love to the world?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it all starts with within. I think it all starts with one being able to love ourselves, and I think a big part of love is accepting ourselves, accepting like the different parts of ourselves. And I think once we're able to love ourselves, like as a human, then it becomes much easier to love other people as humans because we start to see that we're all alike in some kind of way. That's why we're all called humans, and that's why we all live together, and that's why we all interact with one another. So I think when it comes to love, if we start to accept ourselves and if we learn how to understand our own personal needs and give ourselves what we personally need, then we also become a lot better at understanding other people's personal needs and giving others what they personally need. So yeah, I guess it's kind of cheesy, but I think once you really start to love yourself, it becomes a lot easier to love other people. And I think when you love other people, you also teach them how to love themselves. And it's kind of like another nuclear fission reaction where it starts small, but if you just keep doing it, like it can really compound. And small acts of love and kindness can go a long way if you just keep if you're consistent about it and you practice it long term.
Hmm. So I have a question that is pretty different. Is what kind of people do you like the least? Like people you don't like. What kind of people don't
Mm,
you like?
good question. What kind of people do I not like? Hmm, I think the kind of people that I don't like are people who come to a lot of prejudices about others without knowing knowing the truth about the situation without even like inquiring first. Like people who will be racist towards other people or people who will judge other people for their lifestyle or how they look without even getting to know them or without giving them a chance to explain themselves, like people who come to negative conclusions. I think this is a really big pet peeve of mine, and I think most of the time this kind of stuff happens because like they're insecure themselves, like they just don't feel safe and secure, so they judge people as a defense mechanism. But I think that this kind of judgment is a blockage to love because rather than giving someone a chance to get to know them or for them to show them like their goodness, like you're just disqualifying them, you're marking them as like evil, you're marking them as guilty right away. And I think this is like a pet peeve of mine, but at the same time, I understand like why it happens, and I can understand like why people are cautious. But I just wish that people could be cautious in a way that wasn't so hateful and judgmental.
Hmm. What change would you like to make in the world?
What change would I like to make in the world? I guess like with one of my startup ideas that I'm really interested in, I really want to create a way for people to create communities after college. I think this is a really big need that society has because people are really lonely now, and people are dating less, people are getting married less, people are having less kids. Many people report having less close friends. Like a lot of people are getting sucked into hyper reality and like into the digital world, and I really want to create opportunities for people to meet other people in real life. I want to create ways for people to meet other people in real life because I feel like historically, a lot of this kind of real life community creation happened in churches. And I think because we've become a lot less religious as a society, people have kind of lost their ways of connecting with others. So if I could make a change in the world, I really want to create a way for people to be able to bond and connect with each other after college because I think it becomes really hard for people to bond and connect with people after college.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I like this a lot. And how would you do this?
Yeah, so I have this idea right now. It's all still an idea right now. I'm still brainstorming everything, and I'm still um, like yeah, I'm still brainstorming everything, but the idea is called Meet Hub, and what my idea right now is I want to rent out spaces in big cities like San Francisco, New York City, LA, and I want to designate these places as hubs, and I want to have these hubs linked to a mobile application and also like a computer application such that people can link with each other through shared interests, like whether it be like a video game like Valorant or League of Legends or a shared interest like they like to listen to EDM or K-pop or something, or they like it, they like the same anime, or they have like a similar career path, or even like cultural. Like it could be like a cultural community meetup, and I think what I want is like I want for people to be able to like use these applications and they can like go to these hubs, and I want these hubs to be like safe spaces for people to meet each other. And I think there are different ways you can make it safe. You can have like government verification. You can maybe like I don't know if background checks would be feasible, but you can also have like security guards or like moderators to make sure that healthy communication is fostered, kind of like how a lot of Discord communities have moderators. So yeah, I really want to create like hubs in various cities where people can meet up on a consistent basis, like during their lunch breaks or like after work or on the weekends. And I think this could be really cool because what gives me this idea is like how people will meet up for like clubs and colleges, or like how like after like high school people may go to the library and they just may make friends at the library. Like I think proximity, just being around other people who like want to be around other people, and that will help for like create a healthier community, healthier society. I want to fight back against like this hyper reality curse that we have as a society where people are so engaged in the digital worlds. And I think it would create for more healthy digital spaces if people had stronger bonds in real life. And I think this hub idea has a lot of potential.
What is motivating you when you feel low, or when sometimes it's hard to keep going? Uh,
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, yeah. What keeps me going when I feel really low? And I think that's a really good question because I think I've been suffering from a lot of depression. Like I've been suffering from a lot of depression and anxiety over the past few years. So, what keeps me going even though I feel so much pain? I guess like what keeps me going is I feel like throughout my life I've seen and experienced some really good moments that I wouldn't trade for anything else. Like I think I've seen and experienced like my family coming to visit me in the hospital while I have cancer, and I've experienced me playing video games with my cousins and just being so present and enjoying myself and like not really caring about anything other than just enjoying myself with my cousins. And I've experienced like so much love from my aunts and uncles, or even my father who was abusive at many times. Like I think just like these glimmers of just like really good moments, like they're really like they're really deep inside of me, and even though I feel really horrible, I know that these good moments exist, and it gives me a reason to continue making good decisions, because I think there is, of course, a degree of randomness to life, and like sometimes you can do everything perfectly but still get like a bad result because you get unlucky. But I think you still might, like, the best option is to still try your hardest, and the best option is to still be the best person you can and be the most ethical person you can, and you'll raise the probability of like success and good things happen to you. Like I do believe that that's how the universe works. I think there is a degree of luck, but there also is a degree of things that are in our control, and we have no better choice than to do the best with what we can control.
Um, I was thinking about what is the biggest trouble for you right now, and is it what you said at the start, like being someone that you want to be? Is it like what's
Um,
or depression? Or?
hmm, I guess, yeah, that's a good question. What is my biggest struggle right now? I think my biggest struggle right now is I think my biggest struggle right now is my inability to take action. I think because of a lot of my trauma, I suffer from executive dysfunction and dissociation. And executive dysfunction is basically when, like, you just have a really hard time functioning. Like, it's hard for you to think, it's hard for you to move, it's hard for you to speak, it's hard for you to interact with other people. And then dissociation is when you kind of like, when you're, they're related. And dissociation is like when your consciousness kind of resides from your body, like it withdraws from your body because you like your emotional experience gets too intense, or like you're under like too much stress. So like what your body does as a defense mechanism is like you start to dissociate, which means your consciousness kind of exits the present moment. And yeah, I think like this is like the biggest struggle that I have with my life, is because like I have a lot of responsibilities that I'm trying to take, and I have a lot of goals that I want to reach, but it's like really frustrating for me to experience executive dysfunction and dissociation, because I just kind of like end up freezing up, and it's hard for me to execute on the things that I really care about.
Hmm. So I assume you experienced anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, how do you deal with this?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Um, I think mindfulness is the first thing that comes to mind. I think mindfulness is really, really powerful. I think the knee-jerk response for a lot of people is like to run away from your anxiety, or to like distract yourself with like technology or like YouTube videos, video games. And like I definitely used to do that, but I think once I learned how to make friends with my anxiety and to pay attention to my anxiety and to be aware of like what I'm feeling, and to kind of, how do I say it? It's like get comfortable with it. It's like comfortable is a tricky word, because like anxiety is like not comfortable by definition. But I just like kind of like learning how to feel anxiety without letting it be such a big problem, I think was something that helped me a lot. Like just realizing like, okay, I feel anxiety and I can feel it, and like that's okay, and it's not something I need to resist. I think paradoxically that made the anxiety go down a lot. And also, like when I do feel anxiety, it doesn't bother me as much, because I've gotten a lot more comfortable just being with that emotion, like just getting used to having anxiety.
Hmm. Um, do you know the film Matrix? Uh, yeah,
The
Matrix.
Matrix.
Yeah,
Matrix.
the movie. Yeah, Matrix.
Oh yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
movie Matrix. Yeah, I know I know the movie. Yeah,
So there is a choice of the red and the blue pill. W- Do you remember this?
yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Would you? Which one would you take?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I would definitely say the red pill, but let me think about like why I would take the red pill, because this is definitely a hard question. Hmm. I guess I would just say I'm a very curious person, and I like to live in how reality is, and I'd rather live in I'd rather like be aware of how reality actually is, and find a way to live in that real reality, rather than being in a fictitious reality. Like Jordan Peterson, he has this famous saying called "Tell the truth," and I think at first I didn't really understand why you should tell the truth, because I think like the way that I was raised was I was taught to like, oh, if you could lie and like get away with it, then like it's not that big of a deal. Like you might as well just do it so you can get what you want. But then Jordan Peterson like made it really interesting because he argues that you're too like you like humans aren't aware enough to know exactly what they want. And another really interesting point is he said like you should tell the truth because you want when you speak the truth, then reality unfolds to you exactly how it is. Whereas when you're lying, like you're not actually living in like how reality actually is, and you're not going to behave in a way that is conducive to well-being and success because your actions will be like based on decisions on like a fictitious world and not the real world. So I think that really shifted my perspective once he introduced to me the concept that like if you know more truth, then you will have a better idea of how to effectively behave in the world, and that will create a better life for you.
Hmm. What do you think about death?
That's a really good question. I think for a lot of my life, like growing up, I was really, really afraid of death. I didn't even want to think about it. I didn't even want to talk about it. I would do anything to distract myself if the concept ever came up. But now I would say death is a very fascinating concept. And I think since I've reflected on death very deeply and intently, I've learned that death is exactly what gives life meaning. Because if we were never going to die, then there would be like time wouldn't have value because it's the scarcity of our time on earth that gives our time so much value. So I see death as the yin to the yang of life. I think without death, life cannot exist. And I think death is a necessary component for life to have its meaning and for time to have its meaning. I think if there were zero urgency, if there were zero possibility of death ever, then humans wouldn't be motivated to get stuff done because we would just have infinite time and we would take our time for granted because that's in our nature. We take things that we have too much of for granted.
What would be your most beautiful memory?
Good question. What would be my most beautiful memory? Um, hmm. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like probably having kids one day. That would probably be my most beautiful memory. But let me think about something from my current past.
Having what? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Having children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but let me think of something from my current past. What is my most beautiful memory from my current past? I think for me, it's some experiences that I had with my father when I was a young child. I think my father just cared about me on such a deep level that no one else in the world has ever cared about me, except for myself. I think just like some memories of like my father really caring about me when I'm a young child. Those are some of my most beautiful memories. Like I think like me seeing him like be happy for me when I was growing and learning, like or like me seeing him like really disappointed when like something wasn't going well for me. I think that's like a very beautiful memory for me. Like just seeing someone care about me on like such an extremely deep level, on like on a level that like I can't even imagine anyone else caring about me. And like sometimes it's even hard for me to imagine myself caring about myself on that deep of a level. So I would say those are some of my most beautiful memories from my life.
So you said you have kids, right?
Oh, I don't have kids right now, but I think like having kids in the future would probably be like one of my favorite memories.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot to ask you if you are in a relationship or do you live with some. I don't know how to ask this, but you know.
Oh, yeah, I'm single right now. I live with housemates. I live in a single, like I rent out a single, and I live with housemates.
You live in the city, right?
Yeah, I live in the city.
All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I'm good for now, but I really enjoyed this. I would love to do this again sometime.
Yeah. So there is the two last question I ask is there a book, a movie, or something that influenced you and you want to share? You can say three things.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is there's this one K drama called Doctors, and I think the main character really inspired me because she was really smart, but I think she was also very like she was very depressed and very like resentful about her life simply because like she had a lot of family problems. So I think I really resonated with that.
Who was it? What is it? Sorry.
K drama called Doctors.
Okay.
Yeah. And
It's
the
a
second one would
so
be
it's a movie.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh,
It's
okay. Yeah.
it's a Korean drama, so it was like I think it had like 19 or 18 episodes, like an hour long each.
Okay. And
Yeah,
Avatar: The Airbender. Okay.
yeah, and that's where my username comes from. And then the third one would definitely be Attack on Titan. I think Attack on Titan is another really important show for me.
Hmm. Last question is: would you have an advice for the younger generation, like a message in a bottle?
That's a good question. Advice for the younger generation. Yeah, give me a moment to think about this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, what would I tell my younger self? I think I would tell the younger generation to definitely be kind to yourself. I think throughout life, there are a lot of sources of pain and suffering. Like, there's going to be people who are mean to you. There's going to be people who abuse you. Like, sometimes your closest friends or your closest family members are like going to be mean to you, and it's not it like it may be your fault, but it may not be your fault. But you should still be kind to yourself. I think yeah, I think if I had to give advice to the younger generation, just make sure that you don't betray yourself. Make sure you're there for yourself because there's no for sure guarantee that other people will be there for you, but it is in your control whether or not you're there for yourself. So make sure that whatever happens in your life, whatever happens to you, whatever good things happen to you, whatever bad things happen to you, make sure you're there for yourself because that's something you can always control. And it's important for you to always be there for yourself no matter what because you're going to be with yourself for the rest of your life.
All right. Thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre. I really appreciated this, and yeah, hopefully I can talk to you again soon.
Thank you.